Welcome to Worthy Ones, the video series where I take all the newest issue ones that I read for the current comic book week and deem them worthy or not worthy. I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you love me helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy, and if you love daily comic book content, you came to the right place. Before we dive into it, guys, I just gotta give a quick shout out to Dynamite Comics. They've been releasing some pretty good titles as of late, and one of their newest release is coming out on November 6th. TV show back in the day, or if you just like Disney stuff, you're gonna want to check out DuckTales. It's written by Brandon Montclair, and the art is done by Tommaso Ronda. You're gonna have your main characters in here, which is Scrooge McDuck. You're going to get Louie, Huey, and Dewey. So you're going to get all those characters in there. They're going to go on all those crazy adventures. And if you're a DuckTales fan, I think you're going to love this. There's a ton of variant covers here for you to choose from. I think there's like 20 of them altogether. So again, guys, save the date for DuckTales being released on November 6th from Dynamite Entertainment. Duck and Cover. This is issue 1, a 56-page comic for the price of $5. This one is written by Scott Snyder, and the art here is done by Raphael Albuquerque. This series was released, I guess, in parts through Comixology, so I decided to pick this one up, obviously, to talk about it here on Worthy Ones. And Scott Snyder tends to write some solid books, and I wanted to see what Duck and Cover was about, okay? Now, Albuquerque's artwork is really good. I like the colors in this book. There's a lot of dialogue, and with this book, I found that it took some time to kind of get into it. I wasn't really a huge fan of all the characters in this book. Like, I couldn't get attached to really any of them. And I was kind of like, where are we going with this book? Because it's about this guy who's really loves film and is passionate about it and wants to be a big-time director. And the whole time, it's introducing all these characters and the rifts between the kids and all these different things. And you can tell that, obviously, it's almost like a trade, how it was released in, like, parts, right? Because there is interruptions in the actual comic book, like maybe like this particular part right here, right? And then all of a sudden, what happens is you find that there's this huge bombing that takes place from the Russians, and they're in like these robots and all this other stuff, and it becomes very like sci-fi, and there's people being captured and whatnot, and kids sacrificing themselves. And so I thought this book was actually worthy. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, it took me a long time to really get into this, and there was a couple of times where I was bored, but by the time I got to the end of it, I was like, man, I might want to see where this is going in the future. But am I going to see what this is going to offer in the future? I don't know, you know? I think it's good for other readers that maybe don't read as much as I do. But I just thought it was very dialogue heavy, and I couldn't get into the characters as much as I wanted to. There was a great cliffhanger, like I said. So I'm really on the fence about what to do with this book because I read so many other titles. But I think for you guys out there, I think it was kind of a worthy book. Just take your time in reading it. Make this maybe the last read of the day or the first read of the day. And I wouldn't say this is the best book ever, but it is interesting. So I'm going to give this one a C+. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it, or are you in the same boat with me? Dark Empty Void. This is issue 1. This is a $5 comic written by Zach Kaplan. The art is done by Chris Sheehan. The artwork is okay. I wouldn't say it's like my favorite artwork in the world, but it definitely has cool character, facial expressions, different type of coloring, which is pretty neat. But it was fine. It was definitely serviceable for the comic book that it was. There's a lot of human characters. So yeah, it's fine for what it is. Now, with this book is a hole that was created in a compound, like kind of like, why would you do that type of situation, right? But it's like microscopic, and somehow it got unstable, and it got unstable to the point where it's not really necessarily quite a threat yet, but there's somebody that came out of the I would say, the black hole, and she has something that, I don't know, that could be very bad if someone doesn't go with this person or puts her back in, right? And the scientists want to study her. Now, the main characters in this book are husband and wife, and they're getting divorced, and they've been brought back together to help solve this situation that's going on. And they really want the answers here before, again, this black hole could go unstable. So whether they put this girl back in or they keep her or whatever the case may happen out of this black hole situation, yeah, it's still to be determined. For me, I found this book not worthy. This was just something where I was like, I had a much different scope of what I thought this book actually might be. And it could turn out that way, but I just found the main characters not really interesting. There's like this formality that has to happen in order to bring these two characters together. So maybe it'd be something that you would see in some cheap sci-fi movie or something like that. I don't know. But again, the main character wasn't that interesting. The male character wasn't that interesting. The scientists weren't that interesting. Even the creature or the person that comes out of the black hole wasn't that interesting. So I'm just not going to pick up the next issue. I wouldn't say it's horrible. I'm going to say it's very average in my opinion. So I'm going to give this one a C. And again, I'm just not going to continue it, guys. I was expecting something a little bit different from this. Conan, Battle of the Black Stone. This is issue 1. This is a 32-page comic for the price of $4, written by Jim Zub. The art is done by Jonas Scarf. I thought the artwork is very dark. I think it's very fitting for what's going on in this comic book, as this black stone is something that, I don't know, I guess that controls people, makes them go crazy, makes them die, kill themselves, I don't know, right? And I thought that this would be a good jumping on point for me to try to get into Conan, because I never really read him, and a lot of the people are telling me that Jim Zub really writes a good series here and that I should be reading this book. And again, the artwork here is really nice. I like the bright, vibrant colors in here when people are experiencing this like stone or symbol that's going through them. But I did feel a little bit lost. I felt like I was missing something here. I felt like maybe there was a story being told somewhere else, but I did enjoy it. So I do find this book worthy. I did find it interesting, again, about people being torn up because of this mysterious artifact slash stone, and why Conan wasn't like torn up, I don't know, but he was experiencing rage. So let me know in the comments below, what do I have to read in order to understand kind of what's going on in this comic book? But for an overall grade, I think this was well illustrated, well written, and I'm going to give this one a solid B. Again, guys, let me know all your thoughts on Conan, Battle of the Black Stone. Marvel Zombies, Dawn of Decay, issue 1. 32 pages for the price of $5, written by Thomas Kroczynski, and Jason Muir does the artist. Now, I was thinking, man, last week I wasn't expecting Marvel Zombiotes to be such a great book, and it was. And I was like done with zombie books, and everything that I expected Zombiotes to be was like that in this comic book. The artwork is very simplistic, cartoony. You would think that it's almost like made for a kid's book, or I thought that this book would be a perfect book where you shrunk it down and you stuck it in a cereal box and you got a comic book, and when you bought your favorite cereal, right? But when you read this book, obviously it's not really, I would say, geared towards kids when you got zombies around, but still, I don't know, maybe for teens or 12-year-olds or tweens, or I don't know. Anyway, what I'm getting at in this comic book is that this was not a very great, like, setup for a zombie apocalypse. We wind up getting Rocket and Groot working together. They steal like this gun. It's a terraforming type of gun for farming or whatever it is. Somehow Groot has some kind of cold. He sneezes on Captain America. Okay, and the next thing you wind up finding out is like within maybe 10 seconds of the comic book, he's like totally infected, and then he is a zombie. And the way their zombies look in this book is horrible, because the infection is from Groot. So when somebody gets infected, they look like some kind of like plant floric type of creature, almost like The Last of Us or something like that, and that's what they're going for. And by the time you wind up getting to the end of this book, like the whole freaking city is already infected. Like you went from patient 0 to a whole entire city being infected in seconds. It's like, really? Like, it's just so, I don't know. It's such a weak plot. I don't even get really what the point of this is, besides them trying to stop this apocalypse from spreading. And Hulk is like kind of like the main character in this book. So this book is not worthy. Everything that I thought Zombiotes was going to be, right, it was in this book. So with all the books that are out there, for the price that they're charging for this is not worth it. Stay away from this book. This one is a D. Just very simplistic, basic art, point A, point B. It's like your introduction read to comic books. Like I said, the comic book you would get in a cereal box, but shrunken down, right? You guys got those. Am I right? I want to know how many of you out there actually picked this up. This is called Slaughter Otter. This is issue 1. Now, this is a little bit of a pricey comic because it is a really, like, almost unknown publisher. It's by Keenspot, if you guys have heard of them. It's a $6 comic book. It's done by Matt Fife, and Matt Rogers does the artwork. This is what you can expect out of the artwork in this comic book. A crazy otter that's going on this mission that has to retrieve this device, right? And he's going against like leeches or whatever it is. That's like the military group that he's going against, right? It's like he's a hardcore operative. It reminds me back in the day when Dark Horse used to publish Boris the Bear, right? Not a lot of dialogue in here. He's just like, you guys can't stop me. I'm badass. You guys eat this lead, take this lead. And he's got to go into the miscellaneous storage. And again, he's got to find the device. It's bloody, it's gory, and it's actually worthy. I had a lot of fun with this. This is the book where you just have fun with, right? You get all these intense reading stories, these events and stuff like that. And you look at this and you pick it up and you're like, damn. Slaughter Otter, what the hell is this? And it just, you're just reading it and you have no expectations and you just have a lot of fun with it. Probably takes you about 5 minutes to read. Appreciate the artwork in here. If you want to support like the real low-key independent comic books, pick this one up. I'm going to give this one a solid B. I just enjoyed it. If I can get the second issue, I probably will. Minor Arcana issue 1. This book is 48 pages for the price of $5. Written by the great Jeff Lemire. I love his writing ever since he was on Green Arrow back in the day, right after New 52 came out. I just fell in love with his art, or his writing style, and Andrea Sorrentino's actual artwork. But the artist here is also Jeff Lemire, and his artwork might be an acquired taste, or it might take some time to get used to, but it kind of fits the world that he's trying to write in this comic book, right? Now, I read some other comics that he has written in the past that he has his own art in, like I think it was the book or the series called Trillium, I think it was, and that was a pretty interesting and wild book, right? This book is about a young woman who is leaving her big city, life, because it was kind of a failure, and goes back to her home life, right? And it's kind of interesting because in the beginning of this comic book, you're led to believe that, she wants to get her tarot reading, right? And go to a psychic. And she's like, oh, not yet. And then she goes to the coffee shop. She has coffee and things like that. And then she goes back in. She walks into the table. And then you find out that she is going back home to take care of her sick mother. And you're like, oh, quite interesting. And you find out that this girl or this woman has had kind of like an abusive relationship with her father. Her mom was really tough on her, and her mom looks like she's struggling through some cancer. And, you know, she's left on the table of dealing with the tarot business, right? And then one night when she's contemplating about doing certain things, we get a person that visits the psychic shop, and she's like, oh, I want to, you know, meet with my husband and things like that. And she's like, man, lady, it's late at night. And she's like, oh, I'll pay double. So the next thing you do is she does a reading for the lady, because she's seen her mom do it a billion times. And she's like, I can pull this shit off, right? And then the next thing you see is that this could be something much more than just some reading some simplistic cards, and it looks like it takes her to this other world, right? And this kind of reminds me of the last series that Jeff Lemire just wrote, where it was like this large apartment building and 7 people came together and they were there for a common reason, right? This almost reminds me of that. It's a very interesting book, and it's definitely worthy. I think Jeff Lemire does a great job with writing horror, fantasy, suspense. Like, I love his writing style, and I can't wait to see where this second issue goes. I'm going to give this one an A-. Again, his artwork is acquired taste. It's not maybe always the best, and it fits for particular settings, right? So we'll see where the direction of this comic book goes. Plastic Man, no more. This is issue 1, 32 pages for the price of $5. This one is written by Christopher Cantwell, and the art is done by Jacob Edgar. It's kind of funny because on my comic book haul, I'm like, oh, this is a kid's book, not realizing, 1, it was a Black Label book, right? And 2, that there's kind of like a little bit of some curse words in there because they're fighting Solaris, and he's like, take my death ray, you assholes. And I'm like, wait a second, what's going on? But I feel like the artwork is done in a way to fit Plastic Man, right? Bright, very colorful, silly character. And this book was really awesome because I don't know that much about Plastic Man. And the book sums up who he is, where he came from, how he got his powers, how he was a villain, all in about, I don't know, 6 or 7 pages, right? And then in this comic book, he's doing battle against this guy, and we find out that he gets, I don't know, vaporized or whatever it is, and he's not able to regenerate, and he is on his way out. He is basically dying. And this became a very, like, heartfelt book. Like, I felt bad for the guy. You know, you're kind of reliving his life, certain things that he went through. He comes face to face with his son, and he's worried that his son is going to go through the same situation. This book is very much worthy. I love this book, guys. Absolutely awesome. I'm going to give this one an A+. I say go out there, pick this one up. You don't even have to be a Plastic Man fan to appreciate this comic. Exceptional X-Men. This is issue 1. Probably a lot of people talking about this because of Kitty Pryde. This one is 40 pages for the price of $5, written by Eve L. Ewing, and the art is done by Carmen Carnero. Listen, when it came to this book, this was probably like my least exciting book because I just didn't know what to expect. And, you know, it seemed like it focused around Kitty Pryde just kind of being a bartender and whatnot. Now, when it comes to this book is very much centered around the Kitty Pryde character. So if you are a Kitty Pryde fan, you're going to really like this book, I think. Now, the big thing about this comic is that Kitty is supposedly supposed to go on a date, and then she winds up realizing that, oh my god, this is the wrong day of the date, and she couldn't actually go on the date, and it was with a female. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but Kitty has been bi for like the longest time now. It's been quite a while that it's been said by Claremont himself that he's always wanted a relationship with her and Rachel Summers. And then we saw her sharing a kiss, I think, in Marauders, and I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. So that's not a big deal. So if people are like making a big deal out of it, I don't know why you should, because this is old news. So take the story for what it is. It may not be your traditional X story where you get to see all the X characters, but what it does do is that it gets you introduced to maybe a couple of the characters. And I like when teen books do this because, and I've said this many times, is it doesn't overwhelm you with a bunch of characters all at once in this crazy adventure, kind of like the way maybe X-Men has done, right? And it's a little bit of a turnoff for me. Here, we get introduced to Kitty. We get to see her go back home and the place where she lives. She's living an everyday job. She lives with a roommate. There's a corgi. It's very much a very grounded story, right? And she's kind of depressed. She's suffering through anxiety based off of the Conan stuff. She doesn't want anything to deal with X-Men. And it wasn't until she finds a young mutant girl, right, the next generation of mutants here, who is being hated on upon a security guy at a concert and whatnot. And she feels like it's her duty almost to protect this young girl. And obviously this is foreshadowing of her being on this team in the near future, right? And so some good character interaction in this comic. And then of course you wind up getting Emma Frost at the end of this issue, and it looks like she's contemplating kind of like getting the team back together or getting a team together. And then you wind up getting to see, which looks like, I think it's Iceman at the end of this when you scan that QR code as well. So personally, I think this book was worthy, and it was much better than I could have ever anticipated. So, you know, for the haters out there, I'm sorry you dislike this comic book. Maybe you don't agree with what's going on with Kitty, but listen, if she's bi, more power to her. I mean, she's been that way for a while. I found it a little creepy that, honestly, like when she was much younger, she was, you know, Peter was trying to hook up with her, Colossus. So I don't know, but we'll see what's this book will have to offer in the future. And hopefully we will see more characters and the team dynamic as well. But good Kitty Pryde issue. Again, we'll see where it goes. I'm going to give this one probably a B+. Much better than I expected, like I said. So there you have it, webheads. There are my thoughts on this week's issue ones. I want to know your comments down below. And of course, if you love the content, there's always more content right here for you to click on. Remember, guys, I keep supporting those local comic shops. Always buy, always collect, but always remember to read those comics so we can have great comic conversation. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.